Imagine a steel snake. It is 2 inches thick, made of woven high-tensile wire and covered in grease. Right now, it is stretched across the deck of an aircraft carrier under 100,000 pounds of tension. Suddenly, it snaps. Physics takes over in a fraction of a second. The cable doesn't just fall to the ground, it recoils. It whips across the non-skid surface at 400 miles per hour, faster than a bullet leaving a handgun barrel. If it hits a steel bulkhead, it dents the metal. If it hits the landing gear of an F-18 fighter jet, it slices through the titanium struts like a hot knife through butter. And if it hits a human being, it doesn't break bones, it erases them. It cuts through torso and limbs so cleanly that for a split second the brain doesn't even register that the body is dead. This is not a theoretical nightmare or a scene from a horror movie. This is the daily reality for a small, tight-knit group of 20-year-old kids wearing green jerseys. They are called hook runners, and according to insurance actuaries, naval safety reports, and the grim statistics of the deck, they have the statistically deadliest job in the United States military. They work in the kill box, the landing area of a nuclear aircraft carrier. Their job is simple: reset the trap. Their risk is absolute. If they are 1 second too slow, they get crushed by a landing jet. If they are 1 second too fast, they get sliced by a snapping cable. Welcome to the flight deck, the most hostile 4 acres on planet Earth. Today, we are going to walk you directly into the middle of the chaos. We are going to show you why these sailors volunteer for a job that terrified veteran pilots. We will break down the brutal physics of the arresting gear, the relentless schedule that destroys their bodies, and the terrifying accidents that the Navy tries to forget. We are going to look at the economics of a mistake, the smell of fear mixed with jet fuel, and the psychology of standing in the path of a 40-ton monster screaming at 150 miles per hour. To understand the hook runner, you first have to understand the deck. It is not just a workplace, it is a hostile planet. A Nimitz-class carrier is over 1,000 feet long, but the landing strip, the part that actually matters for survival, is only about 300 feet. A pilot approaches this strip at 150 miles per hour. He doesn't touch the brakes. He slams the throttle to full power, military power, just in case he misses the wire and needs to take off again. He is aiming for one of 3 or 4 steel cables stretched across the deck. These are the cross-deck pendants. When the tailhook of the jet catches the wire, a massive hydraulic engine located below the deck screams into action. It absorbs 50 million foot-pounds of energy in 2 seconds. The jet stops. The pilot is thrown forward into his harness, but the danger isn't over, it's just beginning. The cable is now stretched out in a V-shape, lying slack on the deck, vibrating from the impact. And 30 seconds behind this jet, another F-35 is already on final approach. You can see its landing lights cutting through the darkness. The deck must be cleared. The cable must be reset. This is where the hook runner steps in. While the first jet is still taxiing out of the way, blasting 500-degree exhaust across the deck, 2 green shirts sprint into the landing zone. They are carrying a heavy steel bar known as a shepherd's crook. They have to grab the heavy, greasy, scorching hot cable. They have to run it back into position. They have to make sure it is seated correctly on the leaf springs, little metal arches that hold the wire up a few inches so the hook can catch it. And they have to do it while sprinting on a non-skid surface that shreds skin like cheese graters, often at night, often in the rain, and often while the ship is pitching 20 feet up and down in rough seas. If they slip, the approaching jet lands on top of them. There is no time out. There is no pause. The cycle of operations, launch and recover, is a machine that eats people if they hesitate. Why is this wire so dangerous? Let's talk about the physics of tension. The arresting gear cable costs about $10,000. It is replaced every 100 traps or landings. Why? Because the metal fatigue is extreme. Every time a jet hits it, the internal fibers of the wire are stretched to their molecular limit. When a cable snaps, it is usually because of an invisible flaw inside the weave or a sudden spike in tension caused by a pilot landing too hard. In 2016, an E-2C Hawkeye landing on the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower snapped a wire. The video of the incident is horrifying. The cable whips around like a scythe. It took out the legs of 8 sailors. It smashed sensors. It nearly killed the hook runners who were standing just a few feet away in the so-called safe zone. But the truth that every green shirt knows is that the safe zone is a lie. On a flight deck, the only safe place is inside the ship, behind 3 inches of armored steel. The sound of a snapping cable is described by survivors as a crack of doom. It is louder than the jet engines, and the hook runners are the closest people to it. They stand right next to the sheaves, the massive pulleys that guide the wire. When they run out to reset the cable, they are putting their hands on a loaded weapon. Sometimes the hydraulic engine below deck malfunctions. It can retract the cable unexpectedly. If a hook runner is holding it when the engine kicks in, it can rip his arm out of the socket or drag him into the machinery. There have been documented cases where sailors were dragged across the non-skid deck at 40 miles per hour because their glove got snagged on a wire that suddenly retracted. Who are these people willing to face this kind of death? On the flight deck, everyone is color-coded. Purple shirts handle fuel. Red shirts handle bombs. Yellow shirts direct traffic. But the green shirts, specifically the arresting gear crew, are a different breed entirely. They are the mechanics of the deck. They are usually young, 19, 20, 21 years old. They are the ones covered in grease from head to toe. They are the ones with the darkest humor. They call themselves gear dogs. Their motto is simple and terrifying: pull, push, pray. Their job is physically exhausting in a way that gym workouts cannot replicate. A cross-deck pendant weighs hundreds of pounds. Dragging it back into position requires brute functional strength. They do this 20, 30, 50 times a shift. A shift can last 16 hours. Imagine doing heavy deadlifts while inhaling kerosene fumes, while sleep-deprived, while standing on a moving earthquake. Their knees are destroyed by age 25. Their backs are ruined. Their hearing is permanently damaged, even with double ear protection. A jet taking off produces 150 decibels, enough to vibrate your internal organs and rattle your teeth. But they have a swagger. They walk with a specific gait that says they own the place. They know they are the linchpin of the entire operation. If the purple shirts strike, the planes can't fly. If the red shirts strike, the planes can't bomb. But if the green shirts strike, the planes can't land. The carrier becomes a floating parking lot. The pilots have to eject into the ocean, destroying $100 million assets. The entire $13 billion ship is useless without 2 kids with a steel bar resetting a wire. The Navy loves to show montage videos of jets launching to rock music. They don't show the safety center reports. Since 1980, over 40 sailors have died on flight decks. Hundreds have been maimed. Amputations are the most common major injury. Propellers are invisible at high speed. A hook runner focused on the wire might take 1 step backward into the arc of a spinning E-2 Hawkeye prop. There is no pain initially, just a wet thud. The realization comes seconds later when they try to move a limb that is no longer there. Jet intakes are vacuum cleaners. If a hook runner gets too close to the intake of an F-18 while resetting a wire, the suction can pull him off his feet. There is a famous video of a crewman getting sucked into an A6 intruder intake. He survived only because his helmet jammed the engine blades. He was lucky. Most are not. Jet exhaust is another killer. It can blow a sailor overboard. Falling off a carrier is a death sentence. You fall 60 feet into the water. The impact knocks the wind out of you. The ship is moving at 30 knots. By the time you surface, the 100,000-ton propellers, the screws, are churning the water behind you. If you aren't sucked into them, you are left alone in the middle of the ocean while the ship disappears over the horizon. It takes miles to turn a carrier around. By the time the rescue helicopter launches, you might be gone. And then there is the bolter. This is the psychological nightmare of the hook runner. Sometimes a plane misses the wire. The pilot slams the throttle. The exhaust blasts directly backward. If a hook runner has already started moving onto the deck because he thought the plane caught the wire, he takes a direct hit from 30,000 pounds of thrust. It cooks the skin, it melts the float coat, it blows you down the deck like a rag doll. Hook runners have scars, burn scars, skid scars, mental scars. How do you do this job for 6 months straight? You disassociate, you turn off the fear response. Psychologists call it hyperfocus. When the hook runner steps onto the landing area, the rest of the world disappears. He doesn't think about his mom back home. He doesn't think about the bad food in the mess hall. He sees only the wire, the hook, the plane. It is a flow state induced by adrenaline and terror. But when the shift ends, the adrenaline crashes. This is why the berthing compartments of the green shirts are usually the wildest. They play hard because they work hard. They play video games, they lift weights, they sleep like the dead. There is a bond here that civilians cannot understand. You trust your partner with your life, literally. If you are resetting the wire on the port side, you can't see the plane coming from the starboard side. You rely on your partner to scream clear, or to tackle you if you don't move fast enough. It is a brotherhood forged in fire and grease. The safety observer in the white shirt watches them like a hawk, but he can't stop physics. Human reaction time is 0.2 seconds. A snapping cable moves faster than that. A hook runner accepts a simple fact every morning: today might be the day. It's not a suicidal thought. It's a professional acceptance of risk, just like a firefighter entering a burning building. We look at an aircraft carrier and see a symbol of strength. We see the F-35s, the missiles, the radar. But the carrier is a fragile system. It relies on low-tech solutions. The arresting gear engine is basically a giant hydraulic shock absorber designed in the 1960s. The wire is just twisted steel, and the reset mechanism is two kids running. In an age of artificial intelligence, drones, and lasers, why are we still using humans for this? Why isn't there a robot arm that resets the cable? Because robots break. Salt water destroys electronics. A robot can't see that the wire is twisted in a weird way. A robot can't make a split-second judgment call to jump out of the way of a crashing jet. The human eye and the human hand remain the most reliable tools for this specific deadly task. But the cost is high. The turnover rate is high. Many sailors do one tour and get out. Their bodies can't take it. They leave the Navy with bad backs, tinnitus, a permanent ringing in the ears, and nightmares about snapping wires. The Veterans Affairs hospitals are full of former green shirts who walk with a limp. The economic reality of their job is also startling. These sailors are often paid less than a manager at a fast food restaurant. They handle equipment worth millions, protect aircraft worth billions, and risk a life that is priceless, all for a paycheck that barely covers the bills. Yet ask them why they do it and they won't talk about the money. They talk about the rush. They talk about the sunset over the Pacific. They talk about the feeling of the deck vibrating under their boots. There is a visceral sensory overload to the job that becomes addictive. The smell of JP5 jet fuel is so pervasive it tastes like metal in the back of your throat. The heat radiating off the deck can melt the rubber soles of your boots if you stand still too long. The vibration of a landing jet rattles your skeleton. It is a world of extremes, and in this world the hook runner is the gladiator. The pilots are the knights in the air, but the green shirts are the infantry in the trenches. They are the ones who make the system work. Without them, the cycle stops. The sortie rate, the number of missions a carrier can fly, drops to zero. The strategy of the United States military depends on the legs and lungs of these 20-year-olds. When accidents happen, the response is immediate and brutal. The crash and salvage team, the red shirts, moves in, but the green shirts are often the first responders to their own. If a wire snaps and takes a leg, it is a fellow green shirt who applies the tourniquet. It is a green shirt who drags his buddy to the catwalk. The trauma stays with them. You can clean the blood off the deck. You can replace the wire. You can launch the next jet. But you cannot erase the memory of seeing a friend broken by the machine. This is the dark side of the carrier that the recruitment posters don't show. They show the glory. They don't show the grit. They don't show the FOD walk where sailors crawl on their hands and knees looking for debris. They don't show the sleepless nights. They don't show the sheer terror of a ramp strike where a plane hits the back of the ship and fireball engulfs the landing area. In those moments, the hook runners are right there in the blast zone. The next time you watch a movie like Top Gun, don't just look at the pilot in the cockpit. Look at the background. Look for the blurry figures in green shirts running toward the danger while everyone else is running away. They are the hook runners. They are the unsung gladiators of the modern age. They stand in the arena, armed only with a steel bar, facing down 40-ton monsters screaming at 150 miles per hour. They do it for a paycheck that is barely above the poverty line. They do it for their shipmates, and they do it because someone has to. Without them, the $13 billion ship is just a boat. Without them, the American military cannot project power. They are the steel link in the chain of freedom, and sometimes that link snaps. If this deep dive into the deadliest job in the Navy earned your respect, please do 3 things right now. First, smash that like button for the green shirts. They deserve every bit of recognition. Second, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. We are working on a massive documentary about the nuclear submarine force that will blow your mind. And finally, a question for you. We talked about the noise, the danger, and the snapping cables. For a tax-free bonus and the chance to see the world, would you take the job of a hook runner? Or is it too much risk? Tell me in the comments below. I'd do it or no way. I read every single comment. If you think the flight deck is scary, wait until you see what happens inside the engine room when a steam pipe bursts. Click the video on your screen right now to see the story of the snipes, the engineers who live below the waterline. It is a nightmare you haven't heard about yet. Click it and I'll see you there.